March 9th, 1997, Melbourne, Australia. Albert Park was the first of 17 stops on the season, and with the whole grid basically walking into the unknown, many surprises would mix things up even more. Premature departures, lucky breaks, and collisions. Welcome to the 1997 Australian Grand Prix.
Fernando is faster than you.
A day before the race, Williams established its early dominance with a front row lockout, and Jacques Villeneuve secured pole position after being 1.7 seconds faster than his teammate Hans-Hermann Frentzen. Both Ferraris and McLarens completed the top 6, but to put the team's dominance into perspective, only 7 drivers were within 3 seconds of the pole time, one of them being the pole sitter, Jacques Villeneuve. It was a good qualifying session for Panis that managed 9th with the debutant Prost, and also for Barrichello that put his steward in 11th. The current champion Damon Hill could only manage 20th, and his teammate Pedro Paulo Diniz failed to qualify over the 107% rule, but he was allowed to race anyway. Along with the Brazilian, both Lalas also didn't make the cut, but they were astounding 12 seconds behind the pace of the leader and were therefore prohibited to compete in the first race of the 1997 season and their first in Formula 1. Now back to race day. After a dismal qualifying session, the arrows of Damon Hill didn't even survive the first lap, forcing him to retire before the start of the race. A truly bitter pill to swallow for the current world champion. After lights out, Frentzen had an amazing jump and overtook Villeneuve right at the start, forcing him to fight for second with the likes of Eddie Irvine and David Coulthard. The fight, however, wouldn't last long as Eddie Irvine misjudged his braking point into turn 1 and collected not only Villeneuve, but also Johnny Herbert, who was coming around the outside. Just like that, with a couple kilometers of race, we already had 4 retirements and a dominant pole was turned into nothing. With all the chaos in turn 1, Frentzen was now the leader and was followed by Coulthard and Schumacher. Leading a Grand Prix for the first time, Frentzen was creating a gap with relative ease, stretching it to 12 seconds in only 8 laps. Behind him, Schumacher was inching closer and closer to Coulthard, looking to fight for second, while still defending himself from 4th place man, Mika Hakkinen, and the last point-paying position were held by both Benettons of Jean Alesi and Gerhard Berger. The Finn slowly dropped back from the fight for the podium, and by lap 13 his real fight was with both Benettons and Olivier Panis to defend his 4th place finish. Frentzen, on the other hand, was already struggling with backmarkers by lap 17, pitting at the end of the same lap to refuel and avoid more traffic, but he had such a dominant lead that he came back from the pits in 3rd. Another surprise 20 laps in was the 8th place held by Rubens Barrichello with the debutant Stewart. 10 laps came and went, but no one else left the track up front, which meant that Coulthard was still the leader despite huge pressure from Schumacher and also the trouble of overtaking many backmarkers. With both the McLaren and the Ferrari flying with low fuel, Frentzen was struggling to close the gap even with new tires, putting his 2-stop strategy into serious jeopardy. Schumacher pitted at the end of lap 30, looking to complete an overcut on Coulthard. The Scottish went in 3 laps later, returning in front of the German and handing the lead back to Frentzen. With Hakkinen stopping lap 35, Frentzen was the leader, followed by Alesi, Coulthard, and Schumacher. The Frenchman was desperately being called in by his pit crew, but he decided to ignore them for 3 laps until he ran out of fuel and was forced to retire in the middle of the track, wasting precious points for Benetton and also restoring the same top 3 from the beginning of the race. Now 20 laps still awaited the drivers and the Williams was still in front, having 23 seconds of gap, but the German still had to stop one more time. Frentzen went in lap 41, but problems on the right rear wheel nut destroyed his stop and ultimately his race. He rejoined in 3rd with the tough job of catching and passing Schumacher and Coulthard if he wanted to convert the strong pace of his Williams into a race win. With less than 15 laps to go, all 3 drivers were separated by just a few seconds, but it was now Coulthard's race to lose. The end was ever so near, but all 3 drivers were lapping almost identically, making the battle that was once imminent almost impossible. Schumacher was waiting for a mistake from Coulthard's part, and Frentzen was doing exactly the same in 3rd, watching the Ferrari from his fellow countryman very closely and waiting for him to make a big mistake. Sure enough, Michael was the first one to blink, forced to make an extra stop in lap 51 due to refueling problems in his first trip to the pits. Now it was down to Coulthard and Frentzen. One was looking for McLaren's first race win in 48 races, while the other was still looking for his first win in Formula 1 in his first race in Williams, while still battling the fame of cracking under pressure. With only 3 laps to go, Fernando blinked, losing his car at the end of the main straight due to brake issues, losing precious points too, and handing the win to David Coulthard. Despite all the pressure during the whole race, Coulthard won, breaking the drought that McLaren was in and officially leading the championship in 1997. The Scottish was followed by Schumacher and Hakkinen in the podium, Berger, Panis with the newcomer Prost, and the surprise Nicola Larini with his Sauber. The result meant that McLaren left Melbourne with a commanding lead of the Constructors' Championship, doubling the points scored by Schumacher for Ferrari. Benetton, Prost, and Sauber were the other point scorers. In spite of all the preseason fuss and the incredible performance during the weekend, grabbing the pole position and leading most of the laps in the race, Williams was still empty-handed after the first race of the season and was fighting an uphill battle for the time being. With the first Grand Prix in the books, Formula 1 would now go across the world, where São Paulo would be the host of the second race of the season. And I'll see you guys then, right here at Interlagos. I hope you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to check out our social media links at Nando is Faster in all of them. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also, don't forget to check out our podcast feed. We have a podcast if you don't have much time to watch the videos right here. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Make sure to interact in the comments if you want to, and I hope you have a great week. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!